Our scripture this morning comes from the book of Acts and then the book of John, respectively. And in this passage from Acts, in the passage immediately preceding this, Peter was preaching to a large crowd. And just before this, about 3,000 of those people decided to be baptized and become followers. And it picks up there in the story that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. Awe came upon everyone, because many wonders and signs were being done by the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the good will of all people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. And from John, very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly.
Thank you, George, for sharing those words with us this morning. May God add a blessing to the hearing and our understanding of God's word. Let us be in prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I couldn't help but think as George was reading that passage from Acts, and it just reminded me so much of what Pam was sharing about our giving and the sharing the abundance and sharing the goodness that we have with one another. That's really what it means to be community. Well, the last line in the passage from the Gospel of John that George just read us says, Jesus says, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Who among us doesn't want that? To have life and have it abundantly. Surely we all do. But what does that abundance mean? What does it look like? So I went to the dictionary to see what abundance, how it was defined, and it says a very large amount of something. Something. What does that mean? Whatever that means. Perhaps as we move along in this reflection, we'll have a greater understanding of what abundance is about, at least what abundant life that Jesus is talking about is about. All of what this passage from John says in the depiction of the sheep and the shepherd is that there is no other way to an abundant life than to follow Jesus. Now let me clarify this for you. This is not to say that there aren't other pathways to God or to a spiritually mature life. I believe there are many religions and spiritual practices that can get folks there. There are many rivers that lead to the same ocean. But what is central in each of them is love. the love that in our faith is embodied in Jesus. In another passage from the Gospel of John, Jesus once said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." In other words, Jesus declares that I am love in the purest sense of the word, that he is love in the purest sense of the word. And there is no other way than the way of love if we wish to know abundant life. We can be alive. We can be living, but we may not know true abundance. A life that is driven by ego, a life that is self-centered, a life that does not value others and respect all of creation may have life, indeed, may be living, but it will not have life abundantly. And isn't that what we all want? Life abundantly? As the dictionary says, a very large quantity of something, but not just anything. Something that matters, something that makes a difference, that has purpose. Well, directly before the passage that George read to us in the Gospel of John, Jesus performs a healing. He heals a man who has been blind since birth. And there's quite a go-around in that passage between the religious authorities, the man himself and his parents, who have been his guardians, and Jesus. In particular, because Jesus healed the man of his blindness, which raised immediately some judgment from the religious leaders. They challenged the man to say, "Were you really ever really truly blind?" And then they couldn't imagine the possibility that Jesus had the capacity to heal him. Their closed-mindedness blocked their understanding of the possibility that love could reach beyond their limited understanding, and it was not something that they were able to accept or to understand, and so they cast it aside. They were the gatekeepers of the law, and in their minds there was no other way. They missed the fact that love opens up the world to each of us beyond our wildest imaginations. They miss the fact that love is beyond our understanding. Love is the key to true sight, a greater vision of what is possible. And the blind man in that story received sight because he received the significance of that love. The leaders simply could not see. Following the ways of love, of service, of gratitude that Jesus lived out in his life enable us to know an abundant life. Those are the things that point us to an abundant life. You see, when we live with love at the very center of all that we do, we see the world with very different eyes than when we harbor anger or hatred or negativity of any sort. When we care about the well-being of others, when we reach out to share what we can, when we take the extra step to show compassion, when we walk gently upon this earth, deep in the knowledge of our place in the balance of creation, we are deeply enriched. When we come to each day with a sense of gratefulness, a thankful heart that recognizes the blessings and opportunities of this life, we discover an inner peace. Yes, these are what brings us abundant life. Like those told about in our reading from the book of Acts. Abundant life in community, sharing with one another. These might be less tangible and measurable by many standards than what is in our wallet or what material worth we might have or even a sense of greed. But those are the very things that end up robbing us from joy and true depth of love. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. What was Jesus saying? It's not just about living, getting by day, but it is about more than that, much more than that. It is about living abundantly. And what does that look like? Well, for the man who was blind, it was about sight. It was about freedom. It was about opportunity, about being released from his dependence on others. He was open to new opportunity and abundance. That looks different for everyone. But what is the saying is that it counters that which would rob us of the abundant life that we have the potential to enjoy. An abundant life of purpose and joy. What might that look like for you? Where do you need fulfillment in your life? Where do you feel empty or afraid or tired or sad or unsatisfied? Our story tells us that these negative things in our lives are what cause, they become our thieves and the robbers of all that we can possess. But Jesus comes to give life, to tell us there's something more, that there's abundant life. Life that flourishes, life that brings deep satisfaction. Life that is filled with contentment, life that is more than we can imagine, because it's life that's based on love as the very center of our beings. And there's a beautiful thing that happens when we know that abundant life, when we feel that depth within ourselves of love and of joy and of gratitude. It is an unmistakable desire to do our part in bringing that abundance to others. Because in truth, our sense of fulfillment is not complete when there are others who are suffering. It is in noticing those things in our world, in our society, that rob our brothers and sisters of knowing those things in our world that give them freedom, of knowing abundance, and then standing alongside them, doing what we are able to do in order to push back against those forces so that they may know life abundantly as we do. It is acknowledging that abundant life relies on the health of our planet as much as the health of one another. Therefore, we are moved to work against those things that rob the health of our environment and from all living things that rely on the wellness, that wellness for abundant life. I recently read an autobiography of Senator Tammy Duckworth, Hawaii, who was the first senator to give birth while she was in office, during her term in office. You might also know her as a senator who is a double amputee, using her wheelchair to navigate the halls of our government in every aspect of her life. When you read her book, and I recommend that you do, you end up knowing her as one who found abundant life, even with all of the heartache and the brokenness that she had known. A young life of instability and homelessness, where she was found standing on the street selling roses to be able to make a little bit of money to help her family. A young girl who experienced prejudice and inequality as the daughter of an American father and a mother who was Thai Chinese. An accomplished Army Black Hawk pilot who survived being shot down and losing both of her legs and fighting back to gain strength and be mobile again. You might know her as a woman who, against the odds, gave birth twice, becoming the mother of two beautiful daughters. A person of deep conviction towards service that found her in office, fighting for the freedom and the rights of others, fighting against those that would rob others of abundance. In all of these challenges that might have stopped many, Senator Duckworth found strength. she continually reaches for not only living, but living abundantly. And in that abundance, seeks to bring that to all whom she can. It's fitting that the title of Senator Tammy Duckworth's book is "Every Day is a Gift." Indeed, it is. And may it be that for us as well. Amen.